Eric, Jack,
Hi, Sam.
look at that. You guys are on time. All right.
There.
Thank you.
Sure.
Eric,
Hmm.
you were not here yesterday, right?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah, you missed a conversation with Jack and Kayla and Sean.
Oh, great. Yeah, I'll catch up once it gets posted.
Yeah.
Have you been, Jack?
I was just listening to Bach's Fugue and Toccata in D major on a glass harp.
Nice. Like the one Ben Franklin had, or
Let let me turn it on for just a moment.
sure.
The glasses with water, Jack, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah, those are impressive.
okay. It's not really coming through. You might have to
Uh,
turn original sound on if you want to
So
project
yeah, I'll just give you the damn link and
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, it's usually a good idea to not play them
Yeah, I
in
got into
sessions.
Bach for a while when I was doing computer music.
I have a morning ritual that if I have a few minutes I just go to YouTube and let it show me whatever shit it's gonna throw me. And today it popped with a really awesome video of a family that had a cat
Mhm.
that sleeps right on the piano while they're playing, and it's the best way it sleeps. That was pretty cool. And then it showed me this fugue and toccata in on a glass harp, and I
Mhm.
have to say it's pretty stunning.
The guy's hands move really fast, don't they?
Mhm.
Yes, they do.
What I was referring to, Ben Franklin had something called a glass harmonica, Armonica,
So
and
I don't know about that. That's
it's
new.
a similar principle, but it's like the glasses are all mounted on a rod that turns, and he wets his fingers and then plays it
Oh,
like.
okay. Well, this one, it's just a table full of glasses of various sizes and
Mhm.
water levels, and these it's a pair, and they so it's four hands, and it's an
Sure, that's great. Yeah, I'll listen later. Yeah, there's a lot of connections of music with people who've been in the computer industry and mathematicians, and thinking of it was yeah. Oh, yeah, like you told me about like Jeff Raskin getting a pipe organ, and
Yeah, he and I talked about building one. I had a bunch of books on building pipe organs, and he did too. And then when he got the $1 million payoff from Jobs, uh, he just said fuck it and went and bought one. And
nice.
now the one he bought was not very big. It it would not have been, you know. I ended up getting a pipe organ donated. Some old couple in the Bay Area advertised that they had a free 12 rank pipe organ,
Mm.
and so I rented a big U-Haul truck and went down there, and some buddies of mine, and we loaded up the truck and brought it home. And I thought I was going to set it up in the living room. No, no.
Yeah, where do you put the pipes?
Yeah, well, they would have. I would have had to knock the ceiling out, and and so I never actually built the damn thing, and then I ended up selling the house with and that property with the pipe organ still boxed up.
Wow.
So I
Mm.
never did get to put it together.
Mhm. There's a high school near me that has a theater organ. So it has special effects. And to maintain these things, it's a lot of work. And over time, there are certain procedures like re-leathering that need to happen. It's
Well,
quite.
so if the old theater organs were mechanical,
Mhm.
and when you push a key, you're pushing a rod and doing all manner of stuff. Um, the newer ones have electrical relays and
Yeah, this one's electronic.
yeah, okay. Um,
But still the sound's amazing.
oh, it's there's a in Palo Alto,
Mhm.
there's a theater. Sam would know about it. It's owned by the sons of that oil magnate. What was his name?
Are you talking about the old varsity?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's got a pipe organ, and we went and watched. It may have been Gone with the Wind in there, and the pipe organ would come up at these intermission times, and the guy would play it. Um, so yeah, I love those organs.
Yeah, the one near me, it's a Kimball organ, and I think it has some history in the Philadelphia area. But learning to
Welcome.
play that with your feet as well, that's tricky.
Oh no, that's fun. I that's life itself when you can get your legs uh, going, walking the bass pedals
Hmm.
is really fun. Now I'm not. My brother is the one in our family that's the keyboardist. I wasn't. But our parents did get a an Allen electronic two manual with short bass pedals,
Hmm.
and that's where I learned to walk them. And then years later, I went over to the Episcopal Church near where I was living in Palo Alto and Menlo Park, and asked the organist if I could come in and play the organ. And she says, "Yeah, every Saturday morning we do practice sessions."
Hmm.
So I got to sit down at this big honking pipe organ. I don't know, it might have been 13, 15 ranks, whatever.
Mm,
Massive size and full bass, full bass pedals, and that was just a gas.
nice. Hi, Kayla. We're talking about organs.
Of the musical.
Hi, good
That
morning.
was a funny way for you to say that, Eric.
Yeah.
Sam, I do hope you've scanned um, your Matrix channel.
My Matrix, yeah. I have not yet. Yesterday was, yeah, I got to tell you about that. And today's going to be even worse. But yeah, I did get it, but I have not actually gotten there yet. Part of the reason is there's a app I need to configure correctly in order to get to the right place. Because I'm using Linux, you know.
But I duplicated one of the important message in Slack.
I saw that it was there. I didn't know what was missing or whether it was identical.
Well, fundamentally, I shared you stuff yesterday that really should not have been made public.
Are you talking about some of Sean's time?
No, about my project.
Oh, your project.
Yeah.
I think it's already posted. Do you want me to take it down and excise some of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot that the thing is being recorded, damn it. But at any rate, I don't think there's a big issue. It's just that I should not have done that.
As I recall, all you talked
That
about
is
was try to go after an SBIR. That's all I
Yes.
recall.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is in itself not sensitive information.
that is an interesting topic of when do you take things down, like just the process of how do you handle takedowns? Because I've had to do that with certain websites in the past. When someone found something, hey, please take this down now. Yeah. So yeah, I could change the HTML to bypass whatever they didn't want, but leave the page up there or delete the page, and
Yeah.
then yeah, and then like the site goes away. Okay, I want to download everything. Well, I'm gonna get whatever it was, and then remembering to rearch if I wanted to archive it somewhere without that or with it, or it's
It's an
tricky.
age-old problem, yes, with ages-old solutions.
Mhm.
So back to organs for a moment. At the San Diego Zoo, there is a outdoor outside the zoo in Balboa Park. There is a an amphitheater, and it has a pipe organ, a giant
Mm,
pipe organ. And on weekends, college students, music students come and practice on it.
nice.
And so you can go into what's called the Japanese gardens and hike down into this gulch and sit in front of a Buddha and hear Bach's Fugue and Toccata being hammered away on this big pipe organ.
Nice.
It's it's just stunning.
Mhm.
You kind of get the feeling that those guys, Bach and, his contemporaries who really enjoyed organ music, especially the guys in the churches, really liked that resonance with their bones, with their entire skeletal structure when you hit those nice, low, strong frequencies with enough power.
That's
And lately,
that is exactly what's going on.
right,
A little side story. I used to go to topic map conferences in Leipzig, and on one particular time I was there, some friends told me that there was going to be a celebration at Bach's church.
Mm,
So I went and sat in the church where he played the organ.
wow.
And it was the the power of that music in that building is overwhelming.
so you note that in order to even get close to it, lately, the new generations have had to do with amperage, with high voltage, with electronic equipment, with big speakers, in order to get that body shaking kind of feel.
Which
But
to me just sucks.
they well, they probably didn't ever go through that organ experience. But
That
even
that
before the organ, hundreds of years ago, you know what they used to use? Gigantic drums.
well that that's true.
Have you seen these taiko drumming groups from
Oh
Japan
yes,
or
yes, I
other
have.
Indonesian drumming, groups in,
I have.
in the Polynesian islands and
Yep.
African drumming. In fact, when I was in high school, I went every Saturday morning to University of Washington Music Department because I was part of the Seattle Youth Symphony. And right next door to the rehearsal room was an ethnomusicology
Mhm.
professor's office. Strangely enough, she always came in on the weekends. So she always had some very interesting instruments and books and stories. And I didn't get to know her well enough nearly, but that was my first exposure to worldwide music of all kinds. And I'm always interested in, who really enjoys that body shaking kind of experience. You know the Hakka tribe dance,
Nope.
where these guys go stomping and shaking their chest and, pounding their arms and this sort of thing. Kayla, you probably know what I'm talking about.
I absolutely do, and it's just called the haka.
Yeah. And it's done at, multiple celebrations and I guess, life events.
So for me, it was Paul Simon's albums like Graceland and Rhythm of the Saints that got me interested in the world music.
I get that. Yes.
Graceland was a great album.
Hmm.
It really was.
Yeah, the African harmonies, and then Rhythm of the Saints. I remember a video seeing all the drummers on stage doing those rhythms.
Speaking of African, while I was in Mali, um, I saw an African guitar. It's called a kura,
Hmm,
and it's a gigantic gourd with a stick sticking out and two other sticks at angles, and you play it with two hands. Because the chords are not flat like a regular guitar, but they're arranged in two trees, two sides of a tree vertically.
nice.
And one of the engineers that was there, he says, "I know where you can get one." Now in Africa, um, a typical male will have four wives. So on the way, he got a driver, and we sat in the back seat of his car, and on the way to see this Cora, he had to stop and give some money to one of his wives, and then drive on from there. And so we went into this compound, and this guy came out, and he said, "Yes, I'll sell you my Cora." And he said, "This one went with me to Las Vegas on a tour." And and he said, "I'll sell it to you for $20 cash." He wanted US dollars, not
Yeah,
Malian francs.
makes sense.
So I bought it. And driving home, I offered it to the engineer sitting in the back seat, saying, "Here, you can play it." He says, "No, I can't." And I said, "Why?" And he says, "Engineers don't do music.
Mm,
There's people that do music. I'm not one of them."
I disagree with that.
Well, the point is that in the African culture, um,
Oh, he was African? Okay, sorry.
he's African, yes. Uh, he fundamentally he had his caste, his position in life. You've got your storytellers, you've got your rainmakers, you've got your music makers, you got whatever. He was not a music maker, and I said, "Look, I promise I'll never tell anybody." So then he took it and tried to play it.
mhm.
He did not want anybody to know he'd touched it.
It's just like a cultural thing from his country.
Well, I was taken out. My mission, my reason for going to the U.S. government sent me to
Mhm.
Africa to design a wind power system
Okay.
for Mali. And so part of my mission was to go out into the bush. So we went out this highway that if you went further and turned left, you would have been in Timbuktu.
Mhm.
But we turned right and went into this French Padres camp where he would sponsor village elders to come in and learn how to build wind machines by taking a car apart old automobiles that had died.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so that was my first part of that leg. And then the second part was to go literally to a village where we spent a night. Um, Now, spending a night in an African village generally means um, sleeping out in the street or on a roof or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, and the Peace Corps volunteer at that village uh, decided to teach me some Bambara. Bambara is the native language of that
Okay.
particular tribe. Um, so I learned, how are you? How's the first wife? How's the second wife? How's the third wife?
Nice.
Yeah, I have no recollection of what it was I learned, but I knew that's what I was asking. And when you would say that to the village elder in his tongue, he'd get all so excited and babble away and just carry on. And it was such fun. Um, One of the village elders that was there was one who had gone and taken the windmill training. So he had built a water pumping windmill. Now, you have to understand that in tribal villages like that, by the way, this village was right on the Niger River. And the Niger River at this time was really low. Seasonally, it was lower than normal, but what happens is they run out into the riverbed and plant crops when the river is down, and then they have crops to sell
Interesting.
for whatever they want. And what the Peace Corps volunteer was taught him how to grow was onions.
Mhm.
And I actually went swimming in the Niger River, which turned out to be a really stupid thing to do, um, because it's filled with these little worms that go right under your skin.
Oh,
And
no.
um, at any rate, uh, that elder's name was Yaya. And I was wearing I actually went out and bought a cowboy hat and cowboy boots because I knew I was going to be in an area where boots were important.
Mhm.
And so I put my cowboy hat on Yaya and took a photo of him.
Nice.
Um, the point is that when you build a in this culture, when you build a machine that relieves women of certain things like grinding grain or pumping water, carrying water, they just find something else for them to do.
Mm.
In this culture, a child at age 5 goes with his father on his fishing boat.
Okay.
And by age 9, he owns a fishing boat of his own.
Uh,
and the women are just left behind to tend the children and prepare the food and so forth.
Yeah, and we have to respect their
Yet
rituals and
you are
cultures.
looking at life as it may have been 10,000 years ago.
Right. Um, I sponsored a young girl in Malawi through Save the Children, and I learned a lot through that experience. She wrote little letters back to me, and unfortunately, her mom had passed away, and there were four other kids, so she had a lot of work to do. And what Save the Children does is they pull all the funds and they implement programs that are needed in that area. And education was a big thing in Malawi. Yeah.
Speaking of which, one of the co-authors of my Topic Maps book
Hmm.
had a couple of children of his own,
Hmm.
but they decided to adopt from
Hmm.
Africa.
Yep.
They adopted all 8 children of a single woman,
Wow.
and they went there and visited the mother and the birth mother and brought her some gifts and some money and whatever. But she just couldn't handle them. She could she was not financially in a place to raise them.
Right.
So she brought them home. And so now here's this Caucasian dude with his own kids, and suddenly the house is flooded with all these black kids. And he said it was really amazing how they adjusted and how his kids adjusted.
Yeah.
It wasn't long, very long before his daughter and the eldest adoptee, female, called each other sisters.
It's wonderful.
It's an amazing story.
And see, these tribes have initiation rituals. So when kids reach a
Well,
certain age, yeah.
yes, we walked through a village when there was a marriage ceremony going on for what I believe to be about a 12-year-old.
Wow. Yeah. So Save the Children informed us of what could happen. Like they may change their name, and um, yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Sam.
Also, in while I was in Mali, there was a billboard sign downtown by Nestle.
Hmm.
Billboard sign said that women's breast milk was dangerous. You need to drink this fluid we make.
Mm. It's a pattern throughout history, corporate conquest of natural resources, and yeah,
Well,
Sam,
and particularly Nestle is particularly evil.
yes.
Some of the things that I found myself reflecting on is when you actually were describing the first story about how the engineer could not be a musician. And I immediately shook my head. And then I caught myself because I said, I'm being the ugly American here. I'm thinking of my values,
Yeah,
but I'm not thinking about their culture.
right.
this is the lesson. This is I have long felt that every kid before he graduates high school, he or she, ought to be sent to Africa and spend a week there.
Mhm.
Maybe build a latrine or participate in building a house or whatever. Um, and in more recently, since I made several trips to the Philippines. I even took my daughter there on one of them because I
Mhm.
really wanted her to see the distinction. On one side of the river is these gated communities and well-to-do people, and then on the other side of the river is shanty towns and
Mhm.
children playing in the river, which happens to be the sewage system for their village. And I just it, I I think kids need to see that, need to understand. Uh, pardon my French, we're just fucking rich here. We just don't really get it.
There are some documentaries that show that, but still, yeah, to visit is a totally
The
different thing.
documentaries don't have the power. It's going back to the pipe organ. They
Yeah.
don't have the power
Okay.
Right.
of it's a feel good thing to go out and make a film and show the disparities of life. Now, what I learned in the Philippines, and Kayla, I don't know, Kayla, I don't think you grew up there, did you?
Nope.
Well, the orphaned kids, and there are lots of them, became the subjects of the church. And the church is enormously powerful there. And there's a whole bunch of kids that just could not grow up in that environment, so they escaped to the street. And anthropologists have studied them. And I got a close up look at them. Um, the elder boys would become like tribal elders, and the younger kids would then go out at the intersections and beg, pound on windows and beg for coins. And that was the social hierarchy of these kids. And they anthropologists studied those kids, and they studied a bunch of the same kinds of kids in South America, and discovered that the kids had invented their own languages
Out of necessity, you
out
think?
of necessity.
Okay. Yeah, secret to keep secrets within the group, I guess.
Whatever it took to make the system work, yes. Um, uh, it just it really tore me apart the first time I saw it. I mean, we're riding in a taxi cab, and we come up to a stop, and the little tiny little girl just reaching up and pounding on the window, and the cabbie, this particular cabbie, was very thoughtful. He had a whole can of coins.
Yep.
A peso, Filipino peso is not worth a lot, but he would give them a peso, and he did that repeatedly, and other people would ignore them, and I just felt that my kids needed to see that.
Yeah.
So here in the US,
Fill up.
what? Couldn't quite catch that.
Your hand is still raised. You
Yes,
still
yes.
want to talk. Go for it.
I wanted to draw a parallel between what we appear to be wakening up to here in the United States about class disparity, about people, 60% of whom arguably earn below the poverty level, and the billionaires who seem to give not a whit to that particular phenomenon. And yet, that's how the rest of the world has seen the US for decades.
I
You
think you're
know,
right.
exchange rates, arbitrage, artificial economic, sanctions, standards, has imposed this disparity on much of the rest of the world simply because of people who wield power. So we're finally getting a taste of our own medicine, even though it's nowhere near as severe as what the rest of the world has felt from the United States for decades. And that's the
The-
culture we export. And it's
eh,
finally come back to roost.
yeah, the present administration in my lifetime is the worst of the worst.
Can you imagine worse than this?
If you read these historical things about, you
Yeah,
know,
Jackson or Coolidge or whoever else these
all
other
yeah,
guys are.
Coolidge and all of those
Yeah,
people, and they sound like they were really rough horses, but they didn't have the tools that the present administration has.
arguably, they were also not puppets from some other dictator overseas.
But for their day, they were probably pretty bad. But all I know is that in my lifetime, and that spans Truman, Eisenhower, Nixon, blah blah blah. Um, the present one is far and away the most damaging.
And it's a reflection of the population as a whole.
That is the problem, and it's also part and parcel to the fact that the founding fathers didn't trust the peasants, so they invented the electoral college.
Wait. I thought the electoral college was added. Was
in the
it not an amendment?
Constitution.
Is it?
Um,
I thought it was an
I think that
amendment.
the framework for it is probably in the Constitution, but the mechanism is probably
Hmm.
added. Like, there was a certain number of votes for each state that's in the original Constitution.
Yeah, Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 and 3. How states appoint electors who then select the president and vice president. However, the 12th Amendment modified the original process. That's the one I was thinking about for how electors vote, changing the mechanics. Well, I actually can't argue with the fact that, they didn't trust the general populace. It should have been even taken further because if you don't trust the general populace, how do you trust these electors? Same problem.
We'll see. The original theory is that you would trust your state representatives to vote for your senators, not the people. That was repealed in the 17th Amendment.
All of which implies that with the filtering process, you get more trust, more integrity, more representation, which is a bad assumption as we see.
Yeah, that's the biblical assumption that Moses was given by his grandfather. 10 here, choose your 10 moral people to lead, and
Yeah.
10 hundreds.
And in our Supreme Court, we have some of the worst, not the best, the worst. So that system is clearly flawed. I don't know how real it is, but I saw a reference that Bernie Sanders claims that in September, which is coming up, there's going to be a movement to try and get rid of Citizens United. And I hadn't heard that before yesterday. I actually doubt that it's real because if something like that were to happen, like in September, I don't think there's been enough time for that to actually build strength and have a chance of passing. It does need to be done, but I'm not sure that September is doable. And if it fails now, it may be much longer before it actually gets another chance.
Yeah, well, but passing, you say passing. In the present Congress, you're not going to pass anything like that.
Right. That's what I was saying, implied.
Yes.
Yeah. Although after the midterms, should they not actually be stolen, we might have a chance.
Well, even Arnold Schwarzenegger is jumping in on the fight against California redistricting. Now, that's a little bothersome to me.
It is quite bothersome. We cannot fight within the rules if the opponent is fighting outside the rules.
I got a letter from my state representative, a woman named Sanchez, very red, who was arguing that Newsom was basically on a power play to steal democracy from California. And she never mentions that Trump did the same thing in Texas. She doesn't
Happened.
bother to say that.
That's right.
The hypocrisy is so powerful.
That's what I mean. You can't stay color within the lines if the others are just splashing paint everywhere.
That's it.
You hamper yourself and therefore you guarantee failure if you have that high minded, high moral, high ethics, high standard to say, oh, well, I'm going to stay within the rules because I feel better about myself. Meanwhile, society goes to crap. So if you are sufficiently principled, you have to understand the limitations of that. And you still have to, as I remind myself and others of the Hippocratic Oath, first, stop the bleeding. Don't cause any more pain. Stop the pain. And then you can go back to your principles after you've stabilized the system. But I think Democrats have not understood that. And therefore, they are impotent. And Gavin Newsom is the only person who appears to understand that. And rightly so, these, not rightly so, progressives and high minded, quote unquote, high principled people are now criticizing what he's doing, which is short sighted. And I think going to just allow the Republicans to do whatever they want. Newsom is the only one who has a chance of effectively fighting back. Unfortunately, AOC might if she had the power. Bernie would. Jasmine would. Um, Westmore maybe. But all of this nitpicking on, oh, well, this is being power grabbing. Yeah, essentially, yeah, that's right. Because we have to do it because the other side is doing so. And I'm surprised other states are not doing it. New York should be doing it. Illinois should be doing it. You know, all the other states. And not single out California. I am really appalled at how few others are taking that initiative that Gavin Newsom is taking in California. Over.
Well, New York said that it might go that direction as well.
Good.
But it's a race to the bottom because Trump is already enlisting other red states to do the same thing. So it is so blatant. You would think that a decent Supreme Court would step in and say, wait a minute.
Right. And we don't have a decent Supreme Court.
Don't have a decent. By the way, are you guys witnessing a shift in Marjorie Taylor Greene?
I don't pay attention to her, but I don't know. I've heard the same thing.
Um, Today's headline is that she's joining Bernie Sanders to call for an end to Gaza, the starvation in Gaza.
Well, it's about time. I think that's really where the Democrats also killed themselves is they continued supporting Israel.
Well, you know that, and I know that, and a lot of my Jewish friends know that. But there's something about the Jewish lobby that I don't know. Eric, do you know anything about it? Um, it's making it difficult to be American.
There are many types of Jews, so you're always going to have Orthodox saying there's nothing Israel can do wrong.
Yeah.
You're always going to have that. Um, I know that the more liberal forms of Judaism, they will really think about does this make sense? Yeah, what Israel's doing. They will stand against Israel if there's reason to.
Yes, I and all of my friends that are Jewish seem to stand against what Israel is doing, even though they still even have family there and colleagues there and so forth. It's a mess.
Now, do you remember when Netanyahu came to Congress and had a picture of a bomb with the red, it was like filled with red, that they're like this much away from a nuclear weapon? That was several, maybe a decade or two ago. And I'm wondering like what happened to get to the point where we bombed Iran.
Do you remember Netanyahu during Gulf One when he was basically a TV reporter?
That I don't remember, but
I don't.
I don't
interesting.
know what his position was, but on the NBC News, they would always cut to Netanyahu and ask him what was going on.
Hmm.
And at that time, I kind of liked him. He seemed reasonable, but something changed.
How is it not so easily obvious to see that what Israel is doing now is what the Nazis were trying to do to Israel?
Exactly, but nobody wants to talk like that.
Is it too obvious
I don't know.
or not obvious enough?
Well,
Depends. Yeah, it depends who you're talking to,
yes.
because yeah, like an Orthodox Jew would point to Hamas and Hezbollah, and they're the way that they have been sneaky about using human shields for. Yeah, so they'll find
All of which is
things.
correct. All of which is
Oh,
correct.
that's right.
But is there no limit? Is absolute, you know, genocide the only response to that?
Now, somebody from the OGM group brought up the fact that there are so many conflicting reports coming out of Israel and Gaza that we really don't know what's going on there.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can all triangulate. We can read the Red Cross, reports. We can look at the citizen reporting. We can look at what was journalism before they got kicked out. We can actually see that multiple different sources are, saying similar things. So we can cross triangulate. We don't have to say a single source is true or false, all on its own isolation. We have to put all these pieces together.
Now, would you say that that work of doing the triangulation is beyond most people, that they would just rather
Absolutely.
put it into
Absolutely.
ChatGPT and have ChatGPT tell them what's going on?
Absolutely. It is. Most people can't do that. I mean, if you're sitting in a church or mosque or temple or whatever, and you just take whatever's being said at you 100% with certainty, and you say, that's the way I'm living my life, then you're not used to looking at multiple different sources and cross correlating. You're trained not to do that. And that's one of my biggest beefs with religion, is that you are basically being taught to not apply critical reasoning, critical thinking.
So maybe kids are growing up with that training, but then they go to college and then they uh, have to figure out, okay, how do I integrate this, what my professor's saying? And, yeah.
That's right. And then they have to go back to the families and villages and fight that culture, which says, now you're being irresponsible, you're throwing away your culture, you're being hoodwinked or basically brainwashed by universities slash libs. You got to face all of that when you go back to your culture, which is what we've been hearing. Okay. And that again is not just a single source. You triangulate and you still get that message loud and clear. Over.
So I'm going to jump off because it's coming up on time for the FedWiki Zoom.
Oh, good. Enjoy. Good to see you.
Yep.
Hi, Jack.
Later, Jack. Later, Jack. Kayla, you still there?
Yep, I've been listening.
Thanks for not jumping off.
Oh,
No, it's just made me really think about a couple of things. I had a couple of stories in mind, but the opportunity since passed.
you could
I
tell
would
them.
love to hear them. I would love to hear.
It was just really interesting. I almost wish that Jack was still here to talk about the social classes in the Philippines, because I'm very, very well aware of the social classes there, even though I didn't grow up there. And it was something that my parents wanted us to see, but we saw it through the lens of privilege. So, anyways,
Were you
the
always
story of
told
the,
what class you were in?
yeah, and it was because we came from the United States. So, just to give you a little history of my background. So, my dad is from Ilocos, and my mom is from Mindanao. And I think Ilocos is south. I'm not quite sure, and Mindanao is north. So, Mindanao is a Muslim, very, very Muslim place. And my ancestors are, of the Muslim faith, at least on my mom's side. And so my great grandmother, or great great grandmother, I'm not sure, married rich. And anyway, long story short, she, kind of passed down her riches to my grandmother. And unfortunately, my grandmother couldn't manage the business that she had given them. And so I think their business, they had like hectares, I think is what they said, of land, of like, I almost want to say coconut trees or palm trees. And I guess it all died because of some type of disease that just infiltrated the trees. And so they went from riches to rags. That's what my dad used to laugh about. He used to say, your mom went from riches to rags. In fact, we had the first car in the island that they lived in, and my grandmother was the first woman politician. So we had that kind of privileged background for us, and that type of political education. But when my mom became poor, she explained to me that once you're poor, you kind of can't go back to that. Being rich again, you're always going to be ostracized as somebody who is poor. So she met my father, and then they came to the United States, and suddenly, with the U.S. dollar, they are once again rich. But my dad had always grown up poor. He always told us about how they didn't have shoes, and it was such a privilege to actually have an education. He was grateful for his dad to recognize that. But every time he bought us toys, he always reminded us that he was so poor, he never had any toys. So he had to make up toys. So every single time he got us a gift, he guilted us because he didn't have that. But anyway, so going back to the Philippines, it was really interesting because my mom had been snubbed. And so she kind of perpetuated that snub culture. Same with my aunt, who is my mom's sister. And what's really interesting is like their view on people who are poor. They feel both sorry for them, but they also don't trust them. In fact, I do know that a lot of drugs and violence and poverty, just like there is here in the United States, is what really kind of turns people off from helping, quote unquote, those people. Yeah. And I too had gone there when I was a young woman. I think I was like 27 years old. And I'm very familiar with the beggars that Jack was talking about because there's a picture that I have to dig up from my parents' house of me surrounded by a bunch of children while I was shopping somewhere in the mountains. And it was because they all wanted to help me so they could all have like some type of a peso or a coin. And so it's so blatant and obvious there that I ended up, when I was there, we were treated like royalty. I have a cousin who is now a general, but back then he was head of the SWAT team. So he and his men had taken us from the airport, had chaperoned us from the airport back to my mom's house because the traffic was so bad. What else happened? You know, we had like a big mansion that we were in. You know, we had maids. Their maids lived there. The maids had their own separate living quarters and everything. And my aunt actually, one of her best friends was married to a banker. So the second night of our arrival, we got our makeup done and everything, and we went to this banker's party where he had this huge like rooftop party for our family. And I ended up dating one of the servers because he was so handsome. But I remember that was like kind of a no-no. And it was like such a gossip of the town because, you know, I'm of a certain quote unquote class. And how dare I date like somebody that's beneath my class. But anyhow, it was just funny because this gentleman, he was wonderful. He was just, you know, such a good guy. He did not want me to pick him up from his house because he knew that his house was probably one of those shanty houses on the other side of the river that Jack was talking about. And my last night there, I don't remember how much money I had, and I just knew that the conversion rate wouldn't do anything with like the amount of money that I had. It was so little that I was just like, well, I have this much money and I don't know what to do with it. So like, where are we going to go to spend it? And he was actually really shocked that I said that. And he goes, then give it to me. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. So anyways, by the way, if you guys have any questions, I can't see you guys because I'm doing dishes. Just interrupt me and just say I have a question. No? Okay. So anyways, that was story number one that I thought about. Story number two happened last night. And I'll stop and I'll let you guys talk or ask questions. Or if you guys are not interested in story number two, then, you know, we can talk about something else.
Thank
What
you,
is story number two?
Well, go ahead, Eric. You were going to say something? Sorry.
Just thanking you for sharing it because it's opening up a different world for me. I
Yeah,
wouldn't normally
yeah.
know.
You know, it's like it's really interesting to see things as, you know, an American, and then also see things as an American Filipina with the type of history that I've had, you know, having not grown up in the Philippines. Um, to just kind of see that. I do feel bad for the people, the very poor people, and the way Jack describes it is correct. There is a river there that they say glows green in the night because it's so toxic. And yes, the children do play around like the sewer area, and most of them don't have any shoes, so they're running around in rubble and glass and all this other awful crap there.
I do want to
So
hear a story.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the delay keeps me interrupting. Sorry, I apologize.
Oh, no, it's okay. I know. I think you said that before. But you said you want to hear story number two?
I do, and then ask a question after that.
Okay. So story number two happened last night. I was invited to a tiki party. Okay. Mind you, it's a tiki party. And I was very interested at why my friend said that. And I think she is quite culturally sensitive. And so she'd asked me to dance, yada yada. And I was like, well, I don't really move that way anymore. Plus, I didn't want to, like, regardless of how much she wanted to pay me. I'm like, I don't want to dance again. So, anyways, I showed up and I made a lei. And when you give a lei, it's like, it's like giving, a really nice gift. You
Hmm.
It's just you treat it as such, correct? So I made a
Hmm.
lei for her and everything, and then I went to this party and she went all out. It was really cute. But yeah, if you want to look at that party from a cultural lens, it was like kind of embarrassing and shocking. You just have all of that chintzy garb. You have like the straw skirts. They're not even grass. They're just like straw skirts and stuff. And you have like, there's a very skinny uh looking quote unquote hula dancers that look like they came from like the 20s, very skinny, no faces that are actually Polynesian. Lots of really, like, the music was really chintzy and back in the 30s or 40s. It was like 100 years old, okay? And it's typical. I'm very used to it. And when I walked in, you could tell people were like looking at me like, oh, a real woman that understands the culture. And everybody was in their bright shit, okay, that you just like see in a typical luau party. And again, just having gone to a million luau parties and being involved in the culture, I'm kind of used to this, okay? There is majority Caucasians there, and there was probably maybe less than five people of color, including myself. And anyhow, like, it was all kind of uncomfortable because number one, just like seeing, even though I understand, that not too many people know the culture, it's still uncomfortable to see all this chintzy garb. The tables were very uncomfortable for me to sit in. Um, and I was like quite uncomfortable the entire time. It's just, not my people, but it is a friend. So I'm very humbled and happy and, just trying to be very respectful in the space that I am, even though it was very uncomfortable. What was really interesting. So I'm making these assumptions, yeah, about everybody. Like, oh my gosh, they don't know the culture. God, this is embarrassing. Like, is another, white people party, et cetera, et cetera. But what I discovered was this woman took the time to make authentic Hawaiian food, and it is your regular Hawaiian food. It's like the rice with the she had lomi lomi salmon, she had rice, she had um God, what is that? Kalua pork. She also made some really good garlic shrimp. And it was all handmade. She did this blonde, cute, very skinny woman with a plastic lei that overshadowed the lei that I bought her and I took the time to make. That, like, she actually did this, and I was telling her the food is phenomenal, expecting to say like, who's your, ask who's your caterer, and she straight up was all like, oh, I did it. And she was just telling me she actually used banana leaves and all this stuff. Um, and so I'm like, wow, I'm impressed, girl. I don't even make like food like I do, right? So I'm like going into the bar, and they have all of these tiki drinks. They were extremely powerful, so I only had one because I didn't want to fall asleep or get into a car wreck or get a DUI or anything. Um, but I overheard this guy ask this girl, okay, again, all white people almost. He's all like, okay, so how many Trump friends do you have? This is what I'm overhearing. And she's like, zero. And here in my head, I have to admit, and I feel so bad for thinking this, like, oh, all these people are probably Trump supporters. because like Ventura County is like a red state. So I'm hearing this and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, not everybody's like, not everybody's a Trump supporter here just because they're making weird choices in terms of culture. So that was like ding number two. Okay. And the third thing is before I left, um, the host came up to me, my friend, and she goes, so how did I do? And the that question just made me feel so bad. Like here I am making assumption after assumption after assumption. The discomfort is my own discomfort. I was quiet most of the time, half because I was sore. I went on a hike earlier this morning, half because I was uncomfortable. You know, and she threw a wonderful party. She even called it a tiki party. She did not call it a luau. And it appears by the conversations that I was overhearing that none of these people supported Trump. And so when you guys were talking about politics and everything, that just came to my mind. Like, it's too bad that we as a society, and I'm saying this more for myself, have all of these just misconceptions because there are wonderful people out there. You just kind of got to get to know them. So, anyways, that's my second story, and I'm done.
Thank you for telling that.
And I
I'm curious
apologize if
about,
I.
no, when the guy asked the woman, did she have any Trump friends? And she said no. Did you hear what his response might have been?
Yeah, he was surprised. Oh, like pleasantly surprised. So I don't know if she was like a conservative Democrat or wasn't at all, or who knows. I just
So it sounds
didn't
like,
get the time to know.
so he assumed that she would be?
That's what it sounded like to me,
Okay, interesting.
right?
I find it interesting the host asking you how well she did. Like, what is that really implying that they're trying to show? They're trying to show some sensitivity toward your culture. Or,
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me. They are trying to show some type of sensitivity, or
right,
like,
but the way
to me.
you interpret it, what? What are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, I that's how I interpreted, is like she really just took the time to try, to be culturally sensitive
Mhm.
in whatever capacity that she
Yeah.
was given.
Mhm.
Well, there is an inner conflict in a lot of Americans who have privilege, like not really understanding how to relate to different cultures. And I think there's
Mm-hmm.
something there that can be fruitful as a conversation if it's handled with respect.
Yeah, absolutely. It all kind of comes down to, like, I was thinking, she could always ask me,
Yeah,
for help and stuff like that. But at the same time, I know this woman, she has these amazing Halloween parties
right.
every year. She decks it out. Like she puts up all her Halloweens. It's so nice. I think I have several videos on Facebook about her Halloween parties. It is so awesome. She's also brings out a fantastic spread in all of her parties, her dinner parties, everything. Just she goes all out. She spends money on her friends, and she is such a wonderful person. But I didn't want to take that joy away
No,
from
you
her.
don't want to, but it's interesting how, yes, what's available is this cheap stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
that's all she could do to try to show some sensitivity. But if it was more of a closer relationship, maybe just inviting you over for coffee sometime for a nice chat might be enough. But she has to show in the eyes of her friends, she has to play a role as a host, and having a party with these cheap objects that represent uh, it's really tricky how the mind works here, that try, trying to show something socially, trying to have some shared understanding with the friends, that trying to, yeah, like massage that part of the brain that says, oops, I can't understand this person fully, and how do I even try, and without directly asking this person. It's a,
Yeah.
it's a psychological thing going on there, which is, yeah, just two cultures trying to get to know each other. You
Yeah.
see how tricky it is. It's been going on since day one.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. You know, there's a book that I'm reading. It's called sorry, I would bring it up right now, but I'm actually going to water the plants. It's called like woke racism or something like that. And it's written by, you know, a black guy who just said it's like the word has been misused for quite some time now. Um and it's really interesting how things get misconceived and misused, and people get so sensitive to things as in a way they should be. But if there is a willingness, to learn and have these difficult conversations and take accountability, I think that would speak volumes for humanity.
Right? What opportunities are people given to do this at a young age, to get that instilled that we need each other? Yeah. Does the
Yeah.
school even address that, of an integration of the classrooms, but where are the serious conversations happening?
Now, on the flip side, what I do not like too is there's a some Hawaiian Tahitian guy who's a friend of mine, and he's a gay guy too. He's always asking these quote unquote difficult questions, but he always follows it up with what appears to be kind of like a slap on your hand. What's right and what's wrong? Why are you guys having competitions? That's not all about the culture. Blah 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 blah. Like it's almost kind of like he's inviting what he thinks is a difficult conversation.
Yeah, you're always gonna have people
You
like
know,
that.
Because I am not Polynesian. And I do teach it, and I have been blessed by some of the best, including some of the people who work in entertainment who have like granted, like for instance, Moana, have culturally advised, Disney to make a movie that is acceptable but still entertaining. Um, so anyhow, where was I going to go with this? I feel like if you continue to chastise people, it's not. It's sometimes it'll shut people down. Like they don't want to do it anymore. And what's happening is like my own dancers are saying, "Well, why is Dylan talking like that? Does he have something against me? Why are like people bringing up this stuff?" And then I said, "Well, it's because the culture has been appropriated for such a long time. I feel like they're just, finally able to express what was bothering them." I said, "But yeah, for me, I dance and I used to teach and I do it for you guys and for myself too. So, um, I just encourage them not to take it personally. And as long as they're doing everything right for what they know, then that's the best that they could do. But to continue to love the culture and learn." Sorry, I'm spraying my dogs.
When you were saying that, the thing that shuts off that mutual understanding is the quickness of taking offense.
Mm.
If someone says something and it's not intended to be a slight, but the offense is taken so quickly, there's almost no chance to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, did I say it wrong? Or should I have used this other term? Or I didn't mean it that way? Or is there a better way to say it?" There's no chance to say those kind of things if immediate, strong offense is taken. And the quickness with which people bristle is a problem in my mind. It kind of shuts down that mutual understanding if that objection is quick over.
Now, do you
Yeah.
think that's a byproduct of the internet age? Since, like before the 80s, would you say it was different?
I don't know. I really don't know. I mean,
Like, there's
there's
an
certain words
expectation. Yeah.
that just immediately trigger people.
Right.
But when people call me Oriental, I feel nothing.
Mhm.
And yet others around me can bristle.
Yeah.
And they think they're doing it on my behalf.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I think words are just a reflection of the people who is talking. And yeah, they may have malicious intent, they may not have malicious intent, but most of the time I don't take offense at that kind of thing unless I really attribute something much more insidious there. I'm also kind of doing this thought experiment in my own mind about, and I don't know anybody who would do this, but if one of my friends decided to put together a Taiwanese party, what would they have access to? Decorations, food, clothing, songs, furniture.
You just reminded me of something, Sam.
Yeah,
Um, you guys remember Addie? I don't know, Eric. If you met my
I,
friend Addie online?
I remember you brought somebody here. Go
She's
ahead, talk.
Mexican.
Okay.
Yeah, do you remember?
I might.
Maybe. Okay. Um. Anyhow, so being Mexican, we were talking about these things, and it was funny because she said that when it comes to like sombreros or like something fun, right? That you would bring to a party that's like stereotypically Mexican.
Mhm.
mhm,
She told me that like like real Mexicans from Mexico, they don't get offended. They celebrate. They're just like, oh yeah, hey, you got that sombrero
mhm,
on, whatever.
mhm,
You got the big
mhm.
mustache.
Yep.
Um, and she goes, it's the Chicanos, what she considers to be the Mexicans that come or born here
Mhm.
in the United States that get offended. That's what she was telling me. Yeah.
I'm curious to see, why she thought that was the case. Is it that growing up in the United States, you're much more, I guess, reactive to non-politically correct events and references?
I'm not quite sure. Can you say that again?
In other words, does growing up in the US teach us to bristle more quickly at politically incorrect references?
Probably. It's probably a um
probably a reaction of being insensitive to the culture, to cultures in the past. There's a lot of insensitivity to cultures. In fact, when I was dancing, I had he was this big Hawaiian guy, famous actually in his own right. We were dancing, and he had wanted to do like the Hapa Haole songs, like Little Grass Shack. He had sophisticated hula. Again, stuff that's like 100 years old, right? And I learned the traditional stuff, the things that are sung in the actual language, in Olelo, Hawaii, in Reo Tahiti. I know that stuff. That's what I was dancing. I can make up movements to sophisticated hula and all that crap, but I didn't want to, because to me it was more beautiful to do the traditional things. And he straight up, like, when I said, "Hey, do you know this song or that song?" He goes, "Kayla, nobody wants to hear that."
Reflection of society.
Nobody
And
Hard to
meaning him?
appreciate
I'm
the
sorry.
audience.
Nobody meaning him?
Well, it was a mostly Caucasian audience, but yeah, I mean that's kind of what was we grew up with, and he was an older guy, and he was a well-respected guy, and he was famous. He sang, songs everywhere. And that's what he said. And that's how
And,
we grew up. Just kind of like that. Oh, well, that's how it is. Nobody's gonna want to hire us unless we do the hukilau, you
and
know.
what is the age of the audience?
At the time, yeah, they were middle-aged corporate America.
Yeah.
The
So they're,
Las Vegas crowd?
Yeah.
people are looking for comfort of nostalgia a lot, I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, familiarity, all of that good
Familiar
stuff.
stereotype, yeah.
So now I feel like it's swung, wildly the other way, where everybody gets offended by everything. So I think that's a product of it, because we were so insensitive to the culture back then that our own were even saying, like, "Oh yeah, you don't do it that way. You have to do it this way." That's where the melting pot became a melting pot, where all of the wonderful things about the culture died.
As we talk about this, there's so many things that come to mind that this could just go on forever. When I was young, like in elementary and middle school, I used to be called junior high back then.
Mhm.
I was in Albuquerque, and in Albuquerque, there were no Asians, Orientals. We were like the first family, but we eventually found like two or three other families. But I mentioned that I was called all kinds of pejorative ethnic slurs, none of which meant Oriental or Asian. Okay, I've been called the N word, I've been calling the W word, I've been calling all these other words. And there's another stereotype, which is people come up to me and do a little howl and say, "Ah, you know karate?" Except they didn't say karate, they say karate. Okay, and they go into these, what they think are martial arts fighting chop stances. And karate is not even Taiwanese, but that escapes them.
Japanese.
It's not even China. It's not even Chinese. Okay, but that distinction is lost. So that's one. And another is, the slant eye. They would always, make these slant eye faces with their fingers and their eyes, and talk in these sing-song, parodies of what passed for Asian roles in movies at the time. That's where they got their images from. That's where they got their sound bites from. And because I was young, I didn't know what any of that meant. So I was more puzzled rather than offended. I knew they were insulting me, but I didn't know what the references
Kids can be very cruel to each other.
Mm-hmm.
were.
I know Max would get offended because people would call him um, a cheat or something. I forget what they would say, or they would reference, someone with extremely slanted eyes, and he's like, "I'm not even Chinese." I'm like,
But I think what's important is to recognize the insecurity in the people who are doing that.
Yeah.
How they don't have the self-esteem that so they have to pick on somebody else in a way.
Right. And let me add one more little detail. Another reference was something like, even though there weren't very many Asians, they'd already gotten the stereotype that, oh, you guys all look the same. So when I made the same reference back saying, hey, well, you guys all look the same to us, they would get offended when I said something like that. So they didn't get the reference that, hey, it might offend an Asian to be told that, but it was very meaningful when they took offense at that. And they didn't see the hypocrisy there.
Yeah, but who in their life would have taught them that that's hypocritical? If their parents have the stereotypes and
Yeah.
they're growing up with it.
yeah. And it just makes me think of Max's friend. Um, just this past week, it was driving him, Max and his friend, to a workshop, a hip hop workshop, and we were talking about some of our favorite hip hop people, and he was noting this one black woman. She's fantastic. I follow her on Instagram, and I guess this woman had taught in Max's high school before, to which his friends had seen her, or were supposedly they recognized the name. Well, this particular one said that she recognized the name, and Max was like, "Oh, was it this one?" And so he pulled up her Instagram account and showed her. And she's like, "Well, I don't know. I'm not sure." And in my head, I was like, "Yeah, it's because we all look alike, don't we?" But it's true. It is totally true. Like sometimes, sometimes people make that mistake. But
Yep.
when did it become so offensive? And who, like you said, Eric, taught them to say that in such a derogatory manner that it's intentionally offensive.
Yeah, we have to keep in mind everybody grows up differently, has different influences, and we're all in different generations and dealing with all this baggage in our minds when we come together.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we consciously, yeah, um, we have a genuine interest in other people and treating them fairly. Uh, that's what's got to be nurtured going forward. And hopefully that, yeah, diversity, well, it's, I see the value of it throughout my life in the workplace, mostly in school as well. But yeah, who knows what's going to happen to diversity initiatives going forward.
They're being shut down, as Kayla has seen firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting looking at this culture, and especially this generation. I know most of you are not on TikTok, but there's one TikTok that I did with Max. I didn't publish it because I have to edit it, but it was just what is that? Blind reactions to music. And you guys are familiar with NWA, right?
The
Like in
wrestling
the
group?
night in the 90s. No.
It's hip hop.
The hip hop group, and how extremely controversial their songs were when it came on. Like, they had to censor them heavily
Mhm.
because their songs are very nasty and very derogatory towards women. Very, very, very. It's very abusive, in fact. But you grew up with that. And it had a very catchy and good beat in it. So there is this blind reaction trending on TikTok of like Generation X just playing, the NWA songs to their teenagers
Mhm.
and seeing their blind reactions of the teenagers are like shocked and they're shaking their heads. Some of them are laughing. Some of them are just like, oh yeah, that's bad.
Yeah, like if you show like 70s sitcoms to young people today, they'll be shocked as well. What
Yeah,
people
yeah,
got away with on TV.
exactly. Yeah, from time to time I'll forward a very old commercial on Instagram to my sons, just to get a good laugh. I'm like, yeah, this is
Mhm.
what I grew up with.
Explains a lot, huh?
Yeah,
That's what they would say.
exactly.
Hmm.
And everything is targeted. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
Would you believe there is Jewish hip hop?
Yeah,
Yeah, there is.
absolutely.
Mhm. It's, I had a guy who'd come to my high school and he did parodies in, for Jewish lyrics. And then, yeah, a rapper got interested and they created a hip hop Jewish themes. So
Awesome.
it's always mixing of cultures, which is great. We're a big melting pot here in America, right?
Hmm.
Theoretically.
It's interesting. It's interesting to ask where the line is drawn, because if you say we cannot and should not judge past cultures because they had their own standards, they had their own community standards, and what passed for okay. But then you look back thousands of years ago and you see these mass graves, where people were just killed because their lives didn't mean anything. And we can say, well, should I judge them wrongly because that was the way they lived? That was what was passed as acceptable by the community. So some of us would say that's not the case. Some of us might actually make the argument that that is the case. And that's an interesting line to explore. That's an extreme example, but you can pick less extreme examples. I'm only using an extreme example right now.
It's like one thing I did with ChatGPT was just ask it to summarize like Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn and put it in context of the times. What was going on in the 1840s through 1870s, and yeah, I learned a few things about how it was perceived in that time and how forward thinking Mark Twain was to use that as an example to reflect attitudes about slavery to the people reading it, to show the hypocrisy in the church and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so even though today a teacher might look at that and say, "Oh, we can't use this because of the language." Well, what about the historical themes and the context, teaching the kids about the Civil War time period and what was going on, human relations? Maybe there are ways of, without using the text and that may be offensive. Yeah, how can you still keep these messages relevant?
It's funny that you say that because I think in English, Max is reading about Mark Twain, I think.
Mhm.
Or he is just, he mentioned to me that his English teacher um, is black, and she's straight up like the first day of like actual education. She talks about slavery and racism,
Mhm.
and she said the N word like to the. She goes, "Oh yeah." I said, "So which N word did she say? Did she say the nigga or the other one?" And he goes, "No, the other one."
Hmm.
I'm like, oh my God. Well, I honestly wanted to like message her and say, good job, dude. Keep teaching us, you know, keep teaching our kids, you know, the right stuff,
If
in
it's
my
used in
opinion.
context properly, and
Mm-hmm.
the kids understand the message. This is a fact of history. This is what
Yep.
people were indoctrinated in as kids.
Yep.
And yet I can still see some liberal parents saying, "Oh, well, I object to my kid hearing this in school."
I'm pretty sure she thought about that too. So
Yeah,
I'm really interested to see the course of, you know, especially in light of today's politics, how
See, that's the instant reaction. That's going
yeah,
too fast and making a judgment,
exactly, exactly.
or in computer terms, premature optimization.
yeah.
That's one of Doug Engelbart's terms, by the way, premature organization
Ah, nice,
of knowledge.
right?
Does any other country have a similar stereotypical phrase applied to them the way ugly American has been applied to Americans who travel overseas? I can only think of like, the Japanese have a stereotype of carrying cameras everywhere. Okay. Doesn't seem quite as insulting. But I was just wondering about others because ugly American has been around for decades.
I don't, this is not going to be the same reference, but I remember going to the Philippines and seeing this Filipino guy walking the street with a shirt that had a swastika on it and being extremely shocked. And, you know, he was an everyday looking guy. And I asked my aunt, I'm like, how come he has a swastika on his shirt? Does he not know what that symbolizes? And she's all, no, a lot of people are ignorant here. It's because,
Did you know that used to be a Buddhist symbol?
no, I did not.
Yeah. So before Nazis took it, it meant something else. I'm not saying that guy was using the old reference, but these symbols change from time to time as they stand for things that didn't used to stand for.
Wow. I'm going to look that up.
Yeah.
I recently watched the movie The Da Vinci Code again, and the main character is a professor who studies symbols. And at the beginning, they show examples of that how
Yeah.
symbols meant different things over time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, thanks
today,
for reminding me.
if you wear a swastika, yeah, you're gonna get some feedback.
So language in context. Wow. What a meaty topic.
Yeah.
Well, this is why I
And
think
now,
it's rich to think about how these affect communications and collaborations and
yep.
misunderstandings and disappointments and expectations and miscommunication and bristling and taking offense, all of which we see the effects of.
Yeah, if
We see,
everybody had that context, then maybe we could talk to each other. But
Mm.
yeah, we're going to run into these conflicts here and there. We need to
yeah. And if you don't even have
be
the
able to.
patience to say, well, could that be something else
Mhm.
other than what I took it as? You don't
Right.
have that patience, boom. already, that done exploded already.
And now with AI, it's going to have its own interpretation of your words. And that's what people are going to know from the summaries.
Yeah.
That's all I see happening. That's going to happen in the future. Yeah.
You know,
So,
I'm glad you brought that up. Can I tell you a story?
yeah. Yeah.
Every Zoom session, I get a summary email from read.ai
Yep.
saying, please upgrade to premium because you've exceeded your limit and therefore we can't tell you what happened in this meeting. So
Right.
yesterday I finally said, okay, fine. Tell me what you found. Okay, so I paid the whatever it was just to
Yep.
see if it was useful at all. And it's going on and on about, you know, please summarize what this person has said over a bunch of sessions. And I did that. Stacy and Kayla and I and Barry, I asked for summaries of these. Kayla, I don't know if you saw that, but I shared that with you and Stacy yesterday. I didn't do that with you,
Oh,
Eric,
That's
because
all
that
right.
was different. But then one of the things it was telling me was I didn't react positively enough when people said things. I didn't smile enough. And it said, you should smile more. I thought, wait a minute, you're telling me to
stop.
smile more in these meetings? I didn't even think you could look at the video. But it turns out
Read
Zoom
AI
is
is
actually,
creepy.
yeah, because Reed has access to the Zoom video,
Right.
it turns out. So it can tell when I'm looking at the camera or when I'm looking away or, when I've got the camera off. So it's interpreting each of those according to its own heuristics.
Yeah. Is
So
it
I was a
trained
little
on
bit,
body
I was
language?
offended.
Yeah, I'm wondering how can it make those inferences unless it was trained by a body language expert?
You sent it to that group with Stacy in it. I want to see.
Yeah, it's
Thanks
you,
for
me, and
reminding
Stacy,
me.
that one.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started using Read, I think there was probably a trial period, and I was getting emails that hinted that it was looking at video.
Mhm.
And then there was a time when it tried to come into a meeting where I didn't want it to. You didn't get it out of that meeting.
Yeah.
It was trying to follow me
Yeah,
around.
it told me my charisma score was lower than it should be, is what it was telling me.
Oh, now we're in
I wonder what it
leaderboards.
says about mine.
Kayla is so secretive, she won't
Uh,
even show her face.
Yeah, exactly.
This reminds me of a Cory Doctorow novel, one of his first, about down and out in the Magic Kingdom, where they take leaderboards to an extreme where everybody could just look up and see your social credit.
hey, China's implemented that now.
Yep. How are they doing?
I don't have privy to that data.
Nope. Yeah.
We used to think Minority Report was a long ways away. It's here.
Stop thinking. You're thinking bad thoughts. We think you're thinking bad thoughts.
Yeah.
We better stop you now.
Hey, Eric, Kayla, are you guys familiar with a TV show called Lie to Me?
Like,
Oh,
no.
lie to me?
Oh, yeah, like 15, 20 years ago. It's about
No.
it's about this guy who studied micro expressions. Like, whether your eye went up, half a millimeter, or whether your jaw clenched slightly, or whether your lips curled up, or whether or not your ears. So they look at these micro expressions, and the guy plays this master interrogator who can tell when somebody is lying. So he works for,
Nice.
as a consultant for a police department. and so they solve crimes together. I thought that was an interesting premise for a TV show. And you kind of think, with AI now having access to video, there it is. Okay, it's going to be available sooner than you realize. In fact, it's probably available behind the scenes already.
Like voice stress indicators.
Yeah, that's right. They talk about that. They talk about, how wide your, nasal passages flare. They talk about whether they can tell your neck muscles, pulsing. They talk about the cant of your head, whether it's this way or that way. They're looking at all those little micro indicators.
Right. Now you see if you compare that with Rosalind Picard's work, that the effective computing, it's using a lot of sensors, but trying to use it just to help educate a person. And with full transparency that yes, we're collecting this for the purpose of helping identify an emotional state to help you get through what you're stuck with. And what thinking about Barry's research, I'm noticing it as I try to learn new things. I see where I see myself getting stuck in loops, and knowing I'm stuck, knowing the emotions are hindering me, and I think I'm detecting a sense of laziness induced by the AI environment we're living in now. It's like
Guilty.
there's just yeah, it's like, why should I devote more effort to something? uh, and even if it's just for fun, like, why should I dig deeper? And it depends if the mindset that I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. I came to the realization yesterday that I've been a coward. I got to be more courageous.
Yeah, I think we need to help each other through these, these sticking points.
Yeah.
Just talking
I'm
about it helps.
I'm realizing I really need to work on my tolerance.
So go ask AI, how do I work on my
Oh
tolerance?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I
Ask
haven't
AI. Yeah.
I haven't asked AI like what it thinks about me lately.
You might want to read that AI summary of you that I sent you.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, do I need to brace myself? Do I need to pour a glass of wine?
No, 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 no. Read that AOS. Try to be positive about every one of us.
Those stupid humans that need be positive and get them
Although
addicted.
I had another session yesterday with Perplexity where I tried to ask it certain things about Trump, and it
Yep.
it invalidated much of the stuff that I know I've seen.
Mm,
So I'm wondering
Oh,
how it's being trained.
mm. Is Musk preparing to do an IPO of Perplexity? Who knows?
by the way, I've no. You probably noticed this, Sam, if you've updated Alexa, but she does sound smarter.
I was supposed to have him months ago. I I've stopped asking hard questions of Alexa. It's always been stupid. So, oh, by the way, Read.ai said I use the word stupid too often. He says it just turns people off.
Nice.
I could have told you that.
Yeah, well, I'm an old fart now, I'm an old dog.
Um, that is one of the artificial human problems to add.
Bingo, bingo, bingo. Did you get that reference, Kayla?
No.
The new list that Sam's making.
Yeah, I've been talking about smart people problems for a while, and I also have a different list called dumb people problems.
Yeah.
Now I've got a third list called digital people problems,
Nice.
referring to agents and LLMs and bots and the stupid mistakes that they're making.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to a lot of these podcasts generated by Google LM,
Hmm.
and it's yeah, the factual errors are becoming sticking points in my mind now. I'm noticing it, going with the flow. I'm on a walk listening to something cool, and then uh-oh, it doesn't know what it's talking about here.
Right,
And
right,
it's like, bam.
right, right. In fact, Eric, you sent me something that was an audio podcast of something that was supposed to be a summary,
Mhm.
but right at the front, it said it didn't have access to the content of it, and it generated like 10 or 15
Yeah,
minutes worth of audio just based on the title alone,
that's
and it
right.
wasn't at all close to what we
No,
talked
but
about.
it sounded like it was trying to deduce the field of collaborology just
Yeah,
from the word. It's a, oh, wow, that's a
completely
cool
wrong.
word.
Yeah, yeah,
Right, but that's what
yeah,
it'll do. It'll hallucinate till the
yeah.
cows come home.
That's right. And sound plausible, you
Yes,
know?
it sounds very, yeah, that word plausible is important.
Yes.
That's how lies can spread. They sound plausible.
Well, there's another word I like about that. Remember Colbert? I think he coined the word truthiness.
Uh-huh.
Remember that? It was like 20 years ago, 25 years ago when that word first appeared. And I thought, yeah, that's a dangerous notion. Really is. And it's gotten worse and worse and worse.
It works in JavaScript. The number one is truthy. Number
Well,
two is
no, because it has a precise definition there, okay?
yeah, okay. Yeah, I couldn't believe when I first heard about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
no, it's
the world is in a troublesome trajectory.
September will be here before you know it.
We'll
And
see what that brings.
I
Yeah,
do think that staying calm and placid and reasonable is just going to perpetuate the problem. That has not worked up to now. We need to be stronger. We have to take a more Gavin Newsom-esque approach, bully back against the bullies. You can't reason with them. And I've been saying this for years, and I've been criticized by being too blunt, too critical, too obstinate, too divisive, too offensive. But I've seen that the calm, rational approach is not working. And I think Newsom has realized it, he and his staff. And I think more in our political ecosystem also need to come to that realization. You got to back it up with real data. Yes, I agree. And I think that's been done by the truckload. But you got to then also get more blunt.
remember the movie
Okay.
Back to the Future? Yeah,
Yes.
that's what it is. So you have Biff taking advantage of you until,
That's right. Until you put a stop to it.
yeah.
Yep. Yep. Because, those who believe might makes right don't all of a sudden say, oh, you're right. I was wrong. No, they never
Mhm.
say that.
Yeah.
They never say that.
So lately, I'm appreciating the times that I grew up in and the culture that I learned from and the education that I got at the time, realizing, that if I grew up today, I wouldn't get that depth that I had.
Well, I think that there are still good cultures where that is happening.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to find.
Hmm.
I think Finland is a good example. Other than the population decline, I think Japan is a great example.
Hmm.
Taiwan is a reasonable example. Which else?
See, I keep wondering with Japan if it was because of World War II, where everything got bombed out, that encouraged them to really work at improving, if that put the discipline in them. And I wonder about other countries that are losing their infrastructure, if they're going to rise up eventually. To Is there a mentality? And I don't know. Go ahead, Sam.
My view is economically that did benefit them, but culturally and from a discipline standpoint, I think it was already there
It was in
in
there, yeah, in the
Japan.
culture, right? That makes sense. Yeah, but I wonder if that's a pattern throughout history that people who lose everything eventually resurge, and because if people are stuck in the old ways, then they're vulnerable.
Well, that's a core theme of Friedrich Nietzsche. In order
Okay,
to truly be authentic, you have to tear yourself down and rebuild yourself back up. But he's primarily more talking about individuals, but I think it applies to
yeah,
societies as well.
hmm,
And by building
Yeah.
yourself up is meaning, really understand what's true and build your entire mental model based on that, as opposed to just what you've been spoon-fed since you were a baby.
yep. And it's what do the kids learn from? What do they see in you? If they see that resilience and that spark. Yeah, I'm gonna be hopefully inspiring some kids to uh, look at some music this afternoon while they're playing.
Awesome.
Maybe they'll hear some tunes and get interested. I don't know. We'll see.
That's such a breath of fresh air, Eric. One of the things that I
Hmm.
really regret is in the last decades, 3 decades or so of my professional career, in fact, my entire professional career, I've kind of put music into a lower priority, and I really
Hmm.
missed it. I think that was a mistake, other than the few music workshops I was able to help lead. But yesterday, almost the entire day, I just decided to just put on Mahler's, Piano Concerto number one, Beethoven's Piano Concerto number five, Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto, and just blast them the way I used to, back when I used to
Nice.
enjoy it. And man, it was so invigorating
That's
to
great.
hear that. It's been way
Yeah.
too long since I've done that.
Yeah, I went to a string ensemble concert at the library yesterday, and that was nice. Yeah.
What was it? Quartet or something else?
It was six people, four violins, a viola, and a cello.
Fascinating arrangement.
Hmm.
I've never seen a piece for that arrangement.
Yeah, but they just harmonized and did some popular tunes and
Oh,
classics.
okay, okay, okay,
Yeah, so library concert, but still.
okay. I'm about to do one of those, not a library, but a kind of an art festival. There's one coming
Nice.
up on the 30th. So a
Hmm.
friend of mine and I are playing at that particular one at 10:30 in the morning on August 30th.
That's great.
Oh, that's a week from today.
Yep.
Ooh, whoa. I got a rehearsal coming up on Monday. Wait, that's tomorrow.
Good.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Ay, 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 ay. Man, just August has flown by.
Hmm.
It just seemed like, August just arrived and it's like
Right.
1 week till the end of it.
Yeah, it was a busy month. Yeah.
Oh, reminder, I will not be able to host and record these sessions September 6th, 7th, 13, and 14. So if somebody
Yeah.
wants to, that's great. Otherwise, I'll just say we can be on hiatus. But it's well, if you guys wants to step up, we can arrange that.
I might have other non-computer events at the time, so it's okay if we have a hiatus for me.
Yeah, it's
Kayla?
okay for me too. Yep,
Okay.
it's
Then,
okay for
then
me.
I'll announce it then. We'll just have like a
Yep,
2 week
yep.
hiatus and come back on the what is it, the 20th of September.
Mhm. Yeah, and then you could tell
Maybe
all
I'll have
kinds of
some pictures of
stories.
Taiwan.
Yeah, that'd be great. Enjoy your trip.
Yeah.
Hope to. Unfortunately, it's just a week. We're flying on a Saturday, departing on a Saturday, coming back on a Sunday,
Right.
because my older daughter could only get 5 days off, and I
Mhm.
didn't want to just ship her back on her own, and then
Right.
sorry, them back on their own,
Okay.
and uh, and then stay longer. So we're just going to travel as a group.
Okay. Still, you're getting into a new setting. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Taiwan is a cool place. I mean, when I remember it in when I was 5 years old, 0 through 5. Man, I have completely different recollection than what it looks like now, obviously. But, I didn't go back for a long time because I just didn't have the opportunity. So it was decades
Mhm.
before I saw it. And there was just huge change.
Yep, there's one dog. Sorry.
No problem. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, hey, it's 10 o'clock already. Or 13 o'clock, wherever you are.
Yep.
Should
Good
we call
talking
it a
to you.
day?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I do think that this cultural influences focus is really fascinating. And I think we're just barely touching on a lot of those issues. And I'm catching myself in some of those stereotypes, and
Mhm.
they're slippery. They really are.
Yeah, it's a growth process for all of us.
And thanks for your stories, each of you,
Sure.
and Jack too.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay,
well, have a
so
great day.
till next weekend.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay,
Sounds good. Thank
See you.
you.
later. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.